Okay. Oh, all right. We're on. Howdy, partner. How you guys doing? Happy birthday. It was yesterday. It was good, though. I didn't do anything. It was awesome. Yeah, I've been playing this thing all the time now. This has been my kind of go-to. Like, usually I've been on guitar doing this big echoey thing, but past 3 or 4 months I've just been using this instead. I like it. I'm getting still having to figure out how to um, play it. I like that kind of microtonal thing that happens with the fretless. Anyway, what day is it today? It's Wednesday. Yeah, so I didn't do anything yesterday. It was awesome. The first time in a long time I've done nothing. And because of quarantine and because of everything else, there's uh, no one was bothering me. It was great. And I did some writing. I've been writing a couple of things, but it's going really slowly. I think that there's certainly an aspect of lack of um, new things happening in my life that makes it a little easier to rationalize taking a long time with writing. You know, when you've got an onslaught of information in your life, it seems like the music falls out a little quicker, but there's something to be said for taking my time with it too, for sure. I've been writing a really quiet thing. I've been doing some work with a friend of mine that has been actually very interesting, that I'm sure you'll hear about eventually. And what else? I haven't written anything. The biggest thing that I'm finding right now is lyrics. I realized after doing the Empath record that so much of my lyrical content was I had to struggle to find words for things that I have begun to find intriguing, like life-wise, and a lot of it comes down to just the adjectives. It doesn't seem to make much sense to use the word I at this point. Yet at the same time, using the word you seems to imply that you know something that you're trying to impart, which is also not the case. And us seems to be like this kind of we are the world thing that also doesn't appeal to me. So I went down this avenue of thinking, okay, well, I'll just have random words. But then when I am singing things aggressively, it just sounds like someone's just screaming words, words, stuff, and it just doesn't make sense either. So I started thinking, okay, well, I'll make my own language. And when I was about 15, I had this idea to make my own language. And on the Transcendence vinyl, there is these weird symbols, and I had a buddy of mine make a font out of these characters that I had made when I was a kid. But then I realized pretty quickly that it's not a language. It's just like a code, more so than anything else, right? And that also doesn't interest me. It just seems preposterously dumb. So the next thought was, okay, well, I'll make sentiments that I can get behind, and then I'll ask people I know in different countries to translate it into their language, and then I can get my own lyrics or choral parts or what have you to sing it in these different languages. But then a lot of languages just don't flow in the same way. And I think this has been the problem with the podcast recently too. It's like, although I'm doing another one today, um, I don't have the same level of interest in my own trip as I once did, which is great. Actually, it's very healthy for me. But it puts me in this on the next stage of my creative evolution, in this position of trying to figure out what the hell you're going to say, especially if you sing, right? Um, so here's some questions. What do we got? Thank you for the concerts. You're welcome for the concerts. So those quarantine concerts were immense amounts of mental energy. Um, I am really glad that they're finished. And it's not that I didn't enjoy doing them. It's just, I'm on my own, right? So trying to figure out how to do all that technical stuff, plus be responsible for it while it's happening, plus try and perform, plus try and remember the lyrics and all these things. You have those dreams sometimes when you've been working too much, and then all your dreams are just extensions of the process that you've had during the day of trying to figure out these technological processes. It's like working in your dreams like sucks, and that's what was happening. However, there's been the suggestion of, because the Bloodstock concert and all these festivals have kind of wow, thank you, because these festivals, oh, thank you, man, that's awesome, all these festivals have been canceled. There was this suggestion that came that maybe I should take those by request sets that had been put forth, and then do that same sort of quarantine concert vibe, but with the by request stuff. And at first I thought, oh, could that be cool? But I don't want to repeat the same thing. It'd be cool if I could find a different way to do it. And then I thought, well, what if you took all the musicians that you had planned for these shows and hired them to record themselves playing the songs, but on a green screen, and then maybe I could put together in Premiere like a green screen concert that if I had, I could take the backdrop of like the Bloodstock stage or something, which I've got from prior years, and then I could, I don't know, maybe that would be a cool thing to do, and do a by request concert that's like that. But that also sounds like a lot of thinking, right? Do you own a Dingwall? Yeah, I own a green Nolly Dingwall that is somewhere, and I like it. I like, and Sheldon at Dingwall is a fantastic human being too. If you work with Dingwall, if you know the company, their main dude there, his name is Sheldon. I don't know. Dingwall must be his last name, but he's like a really good dude. Would you talk about mixing Infinity a bit more? What were the red and blue mixes like? I think the reason why I was doing two mixes for Infinity is because I wasn't a good mixer. So I just assumed that if I did two mixes that were in different studios that would cover different frequency ranges, and then when I combined them, that whole frequency spectrum that I was hoping to achieve would be covered, and it didn't work. So I did one at a studio that had a real red vibe to me, Red Stripe, and then I had the other mix done at Mushroom Studios where I did that, and it had a much more cold kind of sound. So I thought, well, clearly these two will work perfectly in tandem. They did not. Have you seen the new Avatar teaser for Hunter Gatherer? Actually, Johanna sent me the new record, and I listened to it the other day, and it's really good. I think the people that love Avatar will love this record, because it seems to be a combination of the more immediate beginning stuff and the more complicated stuff. And his voice is really good on this record. Do you mainly use the PV in the Axe effects? I actually don't use the PV stuff anymore. There's a couple of things I use from PV now, But I tend to sort of cycle the gear that I have, and I either store or get rid of the things that are indicative of the past. And the things that kind of remain constant for me are a sideline to any of the creative things. Like this bass here I've had for 5 years, 6 years, I guess. When I first um, got involved with Framus, a lot of my desire to get involved with them was because of Warwick. But I don't find that I use Warwick basses while I'm recording. I use Zahn and Sadowski. Thank you. Thank you. I can't. My desktop is a mess here. Holy cow. Thank you for that. But I use this bass to jam with a lot. But I don't use it to record, and I don't use it to write. This is kind of, I relegate certain instruments in my world to things that are disconnected from my work, and that way they remain neutral. So this bass is like this really beautiful. It's got one spot on it, drives me crazy. Right there, that fret, it buzzes. But the rest of it is so good. It's like that I'm okay with that. I just gotta wait until I get out of quarantine to find a luthier that's open again, so he can do another shave down on the neck. Herman Lee is looking for a new guitar currently. I mentioned Framus to him. Yeah, maybe. Herman's a good dude. Okay, here's some more questions. Thanks for doing this today. Life is a complete dumpster fire right now. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And I'm sure you may all feel similar, or some of you feel similar, where like I try and, like I've said throughout these streams, I try and maintain a schedule throughout the day. I try and keep a discipline. So, like astronauts, I'd seen this thing from an astronaut that was inspiring to me. They said that when they're in space and they're separated from normality and home, that keeping a daily discipline allows them to maintain some sort of sense of internal equilibrium. So I've been doing the same, and it works. But in the morning, like I woke up this morning, I was just like, why do you get out of bed again? But I think it's been good for me because I realized that during this period I've made a certain amount of progress just by being forced into myself in a way. Hey, Dev, let's see. I asked this question a minute ago, but I ask again. Do you ever look back at an album and think, wow, that's even better than I remember it being, or something like that? Sometimes. Often when I look back at my work, it reminds me of a period of time that is no longer relevant. So I don't spend a lot of time listening to the old stuff. And when I do, if it catches me in the right frame of mind, I'll think, oh, okay, that's really cool. But I don't really process the material in that way. It's like an exhaust pipe. All these records, I just kind of vomit them out, and then when they're done, I just hope that I got them accurate. Your memories are detailed in the podcast. Do you keep a journal? No, those traumas become imprinted on you, so they're hard to forget. It's a shame we're not going to see you at Bloodstock this year. Yeah, no, me too. I've spent so much of my life touring that not touring is interesting. But again, and this is another recognition that I feel like I had this morning, is that there's a benefit for me, at least, of not being able to do these things that I've had so much of my trip invested in for so many years, because it forces me to sort of see myself where I'm at right now, and you can't really run from it. And I think that will result in some really interesting things. Even what I had said in the beginning of this with the lyrics and trying to figure out where I'm at lyrically, I think that is something that, had this experience not been thrust upon me, I don't know if I would have proactively pursued. And it's clearly something that's been latent. So I have a feeling that although there is a lot of difficulty during this period, it will result in something that I believe will be really good. I have a feeling that I'll come out of this in a better state, even through the chaos, of which there's much, than I was prior. But who knows? It could go the opposite. I listened to Transcendence today, and I liked it. Um, yeah, I really like. Okay, my favorite song in Transcendence is "From the Heart." I love that song, and I think the ending of Transdermal Celebration, that little ambient bit at the end, is really nice. Uh, I just wanted to say I love it when you go ow 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 on Deconstruction. Thanks, man. I put a lot of effort into that particular line. Speaking of lyrics, it's one of my favorite lines that I've come across lately. What album did you start recording with a dual rectifier? Synkestra. And then from that point, it became digital versions of a dual rectifier. But now I find that my tastes have changed slightly, and I go for a different sort of tone stack than a dual rectifier. Go more for a diesel sort of vibe. It's another step in personal growth, just an unexpected one. Absolutely. Favorite Enya song? My favorite Enya song is Exile off of Watermark. Always has been. I love that one. I just love the flute solo in the middle and the whole works. Any cool bands that you've been listening to lately? Um, I think last year they do this thing at the end of the year on Spotify where they put up your playlist and people get to participate in what it is that you've listened to. I have a feeling that when I put mine up last year, people were thinking that I was just taking the piss because it's all mellow, you know, hippie stuff. And I'm a hippie, so. Do you listen to much Grimes? I listen to half of a song, and it's not really where I'm at the moment. She's talented, though. And I think her and her husband are fascinating. I mean, I don't know how much time I'd want to spend with them, but I like them. It seems like you're in a good place right now. Yeah, maybe. I think so. Maybe that's why I'm having problems writing lyrics. And it's not even problems writing lyrics. It's just that on some level I really feel strongly about what it is I feel about. Yet what I'm feeling so strongly about is kind of ephemeral. It's like hard to define now. And anytime I try and define it, it comes across as super pretentious in a way that I'm not comfortable with because I don't feel like what I'm trying to say is needing to be like said. I don't know. It's a really weird thing. I'm working with a buddy and I'm singing. I'm singing for, and I don't sing for anybody. It's like I hate singing for people. But it's like I often get asked. They're just like, hey, can I send you a direct message so we can talk about collaborating? And I have no interest, none. And it's not that I'm trying to be elitist about it. I just don't have any interest. But there's a couple of long-term friends of mine that we've always sort of threatened to do some stuff together, and I started doing it, and it's really great. But I also feel like, again, I said to him, I was like, I got to really identify what it is that I'm interested in at this point, because singing heavy vocals set to a backdrop of just random words is just so stupid. So maybe this whole period, the personal growth that comes from just being forced to be confronted by where you're at is something that, although difficult, will be artistically very interesting for a lot of us. Right? It's a chance for boredom and rumination. Does the Evertune work with a Capo? Yes, it does. Yeah, and it's like when I did that last concert and I did Detox with the Capo, that is the least metal thing I think I've ever done, is play Detox with a Capo. But I just don't. I have none of my guitars. Like all my touring guitars, that the only one I've got with me is my colorful one, and you know, necessity, mother of invention, and all that. Which of your songs would you recommend to learn first as a guitar beginner? Oh God, I have a lot of songs. Maybe Vampira, although there's one lick in there that really sucks to play. That da 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 da. But that whole thing at the beginning, the night follows me when you're gone, that thing is kind of cool, and it's in standard. Okay, I'm looking for other things. Except for the song Deadhead, do you intentionally stay away from the Accelerated Evolution album live? No. One other thing I learned about doing those quarantine shows is how much of my ability to do the songs live depends on the band. When I'm playing to those tracks, and I just redid all the drums, I could do anything that I've written. But because I'm so picky about tempo and picky about things being the right way, it's like discouraging for me to play a lot of the music from the past, because number one, you have to get everybody to learn it, and it's like a big undertaking. For example, a song like Triumph or a song like Canada or any of these things, it's easy enough for me to do them to tracks because it's like all that production plays into what the song is supposed to be for me. But as soon as you start asking people to do it, like, some drummers can do blast beats, some can't, some drummers can play soft, some can't, some, you know what I mean? It's like, so trying to find like one group of people to do anything is, well, it's always been my goal, I guess, but it's been really hard. And so on that last tour, the Volume 1 tour with, I had the 10 people on stage and no tracks, and Morgan and Mike and all that. And even that, I found that there was certain things that just didn't work. And so with Accelerated Evolution, up to this point, I wish I could just have a group of people that I could say, here's the tracks, here's the songs, I'll be there on Tuesday. If you could just play it exactly like that, we could do everything. It doesn't really work like that. And I tried to experiment with, like I say, no tracks and interpreting the songs differently. But now that I'm working on the Roundhouse DVD for that, I realize that some songs don't work well that way. That at the time live, I thought, oh, this is really cool. But then when I listen to the recording, I'm like, well, that's actually not what I want the song to do. I'm learning. We'll figure it out. Okay. In your Spotify playlist, you included OTT. Ever got in contact with them? No, this is another thing, is I have strangely no desire at all to get in contact with artists that I enjoy. I mean, does that make me weird? It just, I don't have any need to contribute to something that I already like. I think, oh, that's great. And people say, well, you should collaborate. I'm like, well, but I already like it. And if I put me on there, there's a good chance it's just going to make it worse. I'm good at doing what I do. And I enjoy what I do. But I think the reason why I enjoy other artists is because it doesn't have me involved with it. I think that's fantastic. What was missing with Nolly's mix of empath that you were looking for? Time. We could have done it, and it would have been better if we had had time. But we had 8 days. It just wasn't enough time. And so it was like the precision that I needed. I was willing to accept my sounds being not as cool as Nolly's, so I could have the precision of all those sounds come together in a way that really projected the intent. But Nolly has got he's got a lot of people and he's got a lot of things in his life, and I can't afford to hire him for a month and a half, so I just did it myself. But I talked to Nolly last week. He got me the storm bending drum tracks for the second quarantine show, and I love Nolly, man. I think he's a fantastic dude, right? All right, let's see where we are. Congrats on the new puppy. To Whoope. Hey Dev, do you like Mastodon? Yeah, I like the guys a lot. Um, Braun came down to the show in Atlanta, and such a good dude, really good dude. Have you ever met Enya? No. I don't know what I'd say. Hi, you're Enya. Bye. All right. Oh, I see how this goes. It's like I answered, then all of a sudden gets pushed up. Where's your drug rug? Oh, today is not a drug rug day. Today is my. I went to Alaska recently, and I bought this jacket for $8. It says Alaska, and it's $8. So today I'm much more in a $8 Alaska rug frame of mind. What have you learned from quarantine? That my pets drive me fucking crazy. What inspired frogs are nice? I heard frogs and I thought they were nice. All right. Will we ever get to hear Casualties 2? Probably, if Che and I stay alive long enough. I think the thing that inspired Casualties 1 was the fact that we didn't know each other at that point. And we did that entire record by internet. And I would just send her songs, and she would send things back, and I didn't know her. Like we had talked, but there was something that fueled that came from this sense of the unknown, I guess. And now Che and I know each other really well, and we're really good friends, and so the relationship has changed. And so now when we write, it's like the thing that inspired that first one is no longer there, right? So what we have written, we've written one song, and it is really cool. I really like it. Very different, though. And I also find that my relationship with Che is such that when we get together now, we end up just hanging out more so than writing, which is great. I prefer that, to be honest. I think if everything that you do, there's an ulterior motive that you're trying to get product out of it, or you're trying to get a record out of it, I don't know. I just think that's kind of a drag. Specifically when life is short and you're trying to be as present as you can and be with people that you enjoy the company of. It's like a couple times we've gotten together to write, and we just end up drinking coffee, and it's perfect. So at this rate, we'll have another record in about 15 years. How do you get past writer's block? Any tips or methods to help this? Yeah. I don't write. I think that's the biggest thing that I can suggest. And I think the biggest problem with that process of not writing is thinking that it's never going to come back, like you're never going to write again. Think that, it was a fluke that I ever did anything that was worth a shit. And so I have to try and force it. And then when you try and force it and you just, you write a bunch of crappy versions of what you've already written, it's very easy to start thinking, I'm finished. Like that's it for me as an artist. I have used up my reservoir of work and that's it. But it doesn't happen that way. Like eventually what happens, even if it's one song, there's an idea that comes in that you just find yourself writing again. And that's the strangest part about it, is that you find yourself writing and you recognize that the process is exactly the same as it was the last time. Different group of stimuli, but it's not like it went anywhere. It was just dormant until there was a reason. So when I have writer's block, I don't write. In fact, the best thing for me that I found to do when I have writer's block is to organize my work. Like I organize my computer, I organize my cables. I organize my workflow. I get my hard drives set. I intonate my guitar. All these things that when I'm in the heat of battle, so to speak, I wish I had done. Like little things like I know that when I'm recording vocals, um, I have an SM7 microphone, and sometimes I'll use like a tube microphone. But when I'm in the heat of it, if it's not organized, there's cables everywhere, and my gain structures are all screwed up. And then when the ideas start coming out quickly, I can't articulate them because I'm too busy struggling with the things that had I taken the time when I wasn't inspired to do. It's like future dev thanks past dev for the solid. And one of the best examples of that for me was my brain functions very much in a split way when I'm creative. So I think I'm very linear thinking as a person, just in general. But when the creative moments strike, I get just really abstract. So we were about to go on tour years ago, and I was running around going, where the fuck is my passport? I don't have my passport. Where did I put my passport? And then I looked down at my desk, and there was in my handwriting a word that said passport. And I opened it up, and my passport was in there. And the same thing happens when I'm creating. It's almost like the linear dev, his responsibility takes over when I'm not in a writing mode. So that when I do get to that creative moment, which will comes back, thank you very much, which will come back, you're kind of covered. So utilize that lack of creative momentum to help you when you're in the heat of it. Question: do you listen to music when you meditate? Sometimes. It depends on how loud everything else in my world is. They say that a good practice when meditating is to try and tune out the world that is just super loud around you. But I'm not at that point yet. I can only do that sparingly. So I've got these noise canceling headphones when everything in my world is loud. And there's a Spotify playlist that I listen to. What's it called? Here, I'll find it for you. And I've been, when things are too loud, I use this Spotify playlist for meditation that works well for me if it's at the right volume. Where are we? Okay, it's called Singing Bowls. Mindful meditation. Yeah, let's see if that one there. Let's see. That's the one that I use. All right. What's your favorite Meshuggah song? I like the album I. That's my favorite thing they've done. What are your thoughts on Bjork? I used to love Bjork. I used to think Bjork was really, really cool. I worked at a studio that she was also working at. And it was funny because I know her keyboard player. And we were both stuck in this area together when she was there. And one morning she's walking around like in pajamas, like a normal human being. But then I think she recognized there was other people around, and like 15 minutes later, she was dressed up like a swan. Do a song about ice cream. Not a huge ice cream fan, more of a sorbet fan. I had a sorbet at the Super Value in Coquitlam there that was so good. It was pineapple and lychee. I remember Ghost then. They performed less than 100 people. I've never seen Ghost. I know a bunch of people that work for them, though. And I met Tobias last year. I don't think we have much in common, though. How did using Baba Hanuman come about in From the Heart? This is going to be second least heavy metal thing I've done recently. First least heavy metal thing was the Capo during detox, but this is the second least. I was going to yin yoga classes, which I really enjoy. Yes, thank you. I really enjoy those yin yoga classes because they're sort of sedentary and they tend to put you in a position slowly and gently that just hurts. And the last one of the exercise, you put this block between your shoulder blades while you're lying on your back, and so it just kind of puts your chest up and opens your rib cage in a certain way. And during that, they had played a song by a duo called Benji and Heather, that was that Baba Hanuman song. And I just loved it. It just really, really affected me at that moment. And so I asked the instructor who it was, and it was Benji and Heather. And then upon further investigation, it was written by a guy named Krishna Das. So I contacted his foundation and said, hey, I want to do a heavy metal version of that song. And I think at first they were just like, really? But then they realized I wasn't just being a dick and was serious about it. And they said, okay. So on Transcendence, That From the Heart is based on that song written by Krishna Das. Do you plan on working with Isan again in the future? I love Isan. Man, what a good dude. I love spending time with him. I love talking to him. He's just a great dude. And fantastic writer. And we get along great. I really like Isan. But again, you know what's interesting is I've got no desire really to work with people just because I like them. I think that's really healthy, actually, because then there's no, again, ulterior motive to those relationships, right? Have you listened to Heelung? Seems like something you would do. Yeah, I got into him for like a week when we were on the European Volume 1 tour. I got into them because I go to exercise on tour, like so between meet and greet and showtime, I go exercise, and I always try and find something to listen to, and so I liked it, but it grated on me after a while, and it wasn't that it was bad at all. It's really cool. I don't know, just kind of grated on me after a while. What I really liked, though, that didn't grate on me was the band The Who, H-U. And when I first heard it, I remember thinking, because, you know, there's a lot of people saying, oh, it's gimmicky sort of stuff. I just think it's really cool. If you listen to that Wolf Totem album, that's really cool. And I know he just did something with the Hailstorm Singer, and it's really neat. It's like the production's neat, the guitar sounds are neat, I don't know, it was really cool. I preferred that. Were you ever interested in playing drums? I have a rhythmic mind and an uncoordinated body, and the combination makes playing drums really irritating for me, but makes me very fastidious when working with drummers. Do you indulge in playing video games? Never. Ugh. Ugh. Ah. I think they're beautiful. And the art and the music, and when I was a kid, I loved video games. Pac-Man, because I'm old, but oh God. And every time I hear the same thing, it's like, oh, you just haven't found the right game. You haven't found the right game. You know, friends, family members, audience members, you haven't found the right game. You should try this game. And I keep trying, you know, and I just don't see the point. And that's not to say I think that they're bad. It's just, for me, they're hard. They take up a ton of time that I could be doing other things that I really enjoy. I really like, you know, my favorite video game currently is Logic. That's a great video game. but it's really hard. They're just like, oh, you just have to put up the scope, and then you do a left paddle, and blah blah blah. Then you can do this, and then I'm just like, now I won some gold thing that I don't care about, like Rocket League or Call of Duty. Or I had the orchestrator I was working with for the Moth and Transcendence and all this stuff. He's just like, you haven't found the right game. You need to try this game. And he showed me a game called, oh, I forget what it is, Impossible, or I forget what it was. It's like some game where you turn into things, where you flop around this environment, and you can be a bear, and then you can be a paramecium, and then you can be the planet, and it's got Alan Watts talking in the background. All these things seem like they'd be exactly up my alley, but after about 5 minutes, I was just like, I just don't care. And it sucks too, because the majority of my friends love video games, and a lot of these people are much more clever than I, so it's not a reflection on me thinking that I'm above them or anything. I just, it doesn't work for me. Okay, let's see what else we got going on here. Would that change if you would ask to be a producer? I don't want to produce anybody. Don't want to produce anybody. Okay. I'm looking. Guest guitar solos are still cool. I mean, I work with people only because we co-work or something, you know what I mean? But I got asked 3 times last week to do guest spots, guitar or vocals, and I said no to it all. And it's not because I'm trying to be, like I'm better than that or whatever. I just don't want to. And I think that's a totally fair excuse. It's funny. Hello, to France, from France. Yeah. Okay. In your opinion, is the Shure SM7B worth the $400+? I want to get it, but it's pretty steep price point for college students. Yeah, absolutely. Because what's interesting about the SM7 as a vocal microphone is, yes, 400 is a little steep for college students for sure, but I prefer the sound of them to my voice to microphones that are worth $2 or $3 grand. So I think that for that cost, you get a professional microphone. That all these heavy rock records that you hear, a lot of them are just SM7B. And if you look at an AKG 414, or you look at this RN1 that I've been using from SE Electronic, I mean, these are upwards of sometimes $3,000 or $4,000 microphones, and they don't sound as good, in my estimation, for a lot of the stuff I do, as a $400 SM7B. So, although it's a steep price, I think it's certainly worth the investment. That's my opinion. Have you always had music in you? Do you remember the first time you noticed it? Yeah, I think the first time I remember really being aware that there was music in my personality was, I must have been about 7, and I was at my grandparents' house, and they had like one of those organs that had, the cello sound and the bossa nova and the foot pedals and all that, one of those organs. And I remember writing a song, and that song stuck with me. And I think that was the first time that I realized that I could express myself through sound and have it accurately represent where I was at. So I would say yes. All right. Why did you stop playing Secret Sciences? Secret Sciences was a song that I really enjoyed. I really liked that song from Transcendence. Didn't go over as well live. Yeah, I think sometimes you make the assumption, either as a musician or as an audience participant, that because you enjoy a song, it would work well in a live environment. But sometimes it just really doesn't. It's a lot of making a good set for live involves sort of the peaks and valleys of starting in a way that's sort of gets people's attention, and then you sort of build up that energy, and in the middle you sort of dip it down a bit, and then you bring it back up, and then you hopefully can climax it, right? And you can try other things. You can just do random songs, but it's like a living entity, a live show, and the audience, and each night is different. And so, thank you for that. I think that Secret Sciences was a song that I tried a couple of times, and it just didn't seem to work at that point. But maybe again. What inspired frogs are nice? Nice frogs is my answer. Have you tried cloning yourself? No. I really enjoyed Morgan's take on Genesis and some of the DTP stuff. Oh yeah, Morgan is. There's a lot of drummers in the world, but there's only one Morgan, right? And the fact that he learned my stuff is fascinating to both me and him. In fact, he had never done that before. He's such an improvisational drummer. His wife and his son and his buddies helped him learn the stuff, because Morgan's so in the moment musically that his retention for a lot of stuff has been up to that point very difficult. He just doesn't have any interest in learning things like the record, but he went out of his way to do that for me, and I think it's one of the nicest gestures that any musician has done for me. But at the same time, Morgan is Morgan. He needs to be Morgan, and I feel bad about asking him to do things the way that I want them to be done. And I enjoyed the opportunity of interpreting the stuff. But I also realized by doing these quarantine shows that I really enjoy things just being the way that they're supposed to be. So I think in my next incarnation live, it's just about finding the right players to make it that. Like, just do it like that. Same tempo, exactly. And I'll, of course, do other things where it's more improv and what have you, but I think that it really makes sense for me just to get together a group of people that can play things exactly the way that I want them to be played. Who knows? Let's see. Other question. All right. Did you challenge yourself to write a song in 5 minutes and then Frogs Are Nice happened? No. That'd be fun. 5 minutes? I don't know. I don't write as fast as I used to. Who's one artist you'd love to collaborate with? I don't want to collaborate with anybody. I play with people, and there's a bunch of people that I'm playing with currently that I think is great, and I'm sure you'll hear about it. But I think it's interesting. Let's see. Are you a fan of Letterkenny? Yes and no. I haven't gotten through a whole episode. I really like the early Trailer Park Boys stuff, but didn't like the later stuff of that either. Sorry, I'm not giving you a lot of great answers here. Okay. What emotions drove you to write such a deep song as The Death of Music? Oh, I was just 23 and lost. Man, and Frogs Are Nice was an inspiring song for you lot here, it seems. What inspired Frogs Are Nice? I will say it again. Nice frogs. Can you play slap bass? I cannot. Andy Sneap. Yeah, Andy Sneap is a good friend of mine. I don't know if we would work well together, though. Andy really likes straight ahead metal. Like, that's kind of his trip. And I think that although we've talked about working together, I think that we would probably run into a situation where once I start bringing in all the orchestration, all that stuff, he's just like, you just turn all that down. All right. Are you ever going to make more music with Gajira? Yeah, I don't know. They're friends of mine. Again, it's. I think it might be easier for me to say in the position that I'm in, then would be understandable to people who have maybe not had the experiences that I've had. But I'll say it again, like my desire to collaborate with people, uh, I'd much rather be friends with people than go out of my way to try and um, make music with them. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. How was your most extraordinary birthday? It was good. I played bass, I played guitar, I added some strings to a really mellow song, then stopped when I felt like it. I didn't do the podcast. I didn't do a Twitch stream. I didn't interact with anybody. I went to bed early. It's perfect. I took the day off of exercise. It was great. Hellfest 2020 is canceled. Yes, it is. All these ones were canceled. Z3 when? I've had no desire to do more Ziltoid music. Thank you, the Deet. I've had no desire to do more Ziltoid music recently. I first listened to Transcendence 30,000 feet in the air, watching the clouds. Yeah, I listened to that one on a boat, and I remember at the end really thinking that it worked. That was great. I love the idea of you giving yourself presents from the past. Absolutely. Again, to all the artists and musicians on here, I can't recommend that enough. When you're not inspired to write, give your future writing self presents. All those things that are a problem. For example, what are little things that irritate you? Maybe there's, the fact that when you go for your socks in the morning, you've got one or two random socks in your sock drawer that maybe you can recognize bug the shit out of you just a bit that they're there. So if you're not writing, get rid of those 3 socks. It's a small thing, but I'm shocked at how much mental space that clears up. It's like there's a certain amount of real estate that's available for me as a writer. And when it's taken up by 3 socks, it might be 3 socks, but it's 3 socks too many. So I give myself the present of when I've got nothing better to do, just getting rid of those socks. And it's a super small thing. Like you might find that can extend to, there's a shoe that has been in the middle of your garage for months that you just kind of don't move because you have just learned to accept that in your garage is a shoe. But if you're in those moments where you're not writing, just get rid of that shoe. Like just move it. And you'll find that when you're all of a sudden you have this idea, you want to do a sculpture or a painting or a song, and then you have to run out to get something. You have this meaning, you're just like, oh, that shoe's not there. Oh my God, that feels so good. Or I really want to get this song done and I want to wake up early to get at it. And you go for a pair of socks, you're like, oh, those 3 socks that have been bugging me for a year and a half, but are too small of a task for me to think is important enough for me to spend the 3 seconds getting rid of. The fact that they're not there is a present for your future creative self. I can't recommend that enough. And it seems like it's small things, but man, they stack up. Okay. Could you do a series where you show the whole process of writing a song, recording, mixing, and mastering? Yeah, I did that already. It was called the Devin Townsend Creative Academy, without a hint of irony. If you look it up, I think it's called DTCA. Like, I think there's a bunch of people here that actually did it too. And I go through everything. I go through the mixing and the mastering and the writing and the rehearsing and my studio and everything. That's all involved with that. So if you're interested, there's that. And it's a lot of material too. It takes much more time than I've got here, but there's that. Right. Is there a way to getting a hold of the audio file for the quarantine show number 1? If you only attended shows number 2 and number 3, I would love to have the full set. Probably eventually, but I'd like to give people who contributed that just to have the option to have that exclusive to them or what have you. But I mean, there's a good chance it's probably already up online, Worst and best thing about touring. Okay, best thing about touring. is the learning that comes with being thrust into situations that are uncomfortable or unusual. Like I find myself, I got strangely, I got super sick in India. I was in Jaipur and I was super sick for like 5 days, to the point where I was just like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to die. I remember being on the floor of the bathroom and even in that state laughing and just going, wow, I wonder if this is it for me, because I've never felt this bad. But there was something really, in hindsight, that I took from that, and then I had to take a car back to Delhi, like still sick, and I had my headphones on and I was listening to this album by Rapoon called the Kierzig Light, I think it was. And just like that whole drive back with like the cows and the heat and the smells and everything that was happening on that drive was something that at the time I hadn't recognized had affected me that much. Or I was in Singapore recently as well, and it's strange that my mind goes back to the hotel that I was in Singapore, and like the exercise room, and just going and looking around the city. And there's certain emotional things that I feel that as an artist, my whole trip is about translating these experiences. But you don't know at the time that you're having these experiences. It's just in retrospect, you're like, wow, I think that affected me. So that is strangely, although it involves a lot of discomfort and all these sorts of things, it's still like the thing that makes me feel the most attached to touring. And the worst thing about touring, I think it's the Groundhog's Day. I think, well, there's a couple things. There's no privacy, and I like privacy. I like being on my own. Like, I function best when I'm on my own, and that includes family, friends. Like, I function best when I'm on my own. I don't like going to shows. I don't like, social get-togethers unless they're, like, small, and, I mean, so on tour, you're constantly surrounded by humans, and you're also the focus of a lot of attention, and that attention requires you to be emotionally defensive in a way that still has an element of how are you present for people. Like if somebody feels the need to tell you something about the way that a piece of music has made them feel, you don't want to be closed off. You want to be open to the point where you can listen, but you've also got to be protected enough that you're not like just absorbing all this energy all the time. And that's a skill set that is like, it just requires you to learn. And singing every night fucking sucks. I really like singing if I do it once a week. But if I do it 5 nights a week, it just compounds and gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then by the end of it, your entire tour day is just based on trying to maintain your voice. And the career that I've established myself has a certain amount of attention paid to my voice, where people expect it to be a certain thing. And so, when you get up there and your voice just eats shit after touring for 6 weeks straight, it's like psychologically crazy. I really dislike that. All right. What was the reason behind your advice going for a 27-inch fret scale on the 7-string Stormbender as opposed to 26.5? I think because I tuned so low, I found that the 26.5 was just a little floppy for me. Hey, Dev, in your book, you wrote a line about saying that your parents dressed as hippies, but that was just the uniform for the time. I love that line. What do you think is the uniform of today? I don't know, outrage? Recreational outrage? I don't know. Identity? I think there's maybe the uniform right now is because of the internet, because there's so many of us and we're so disconnected from each other at the same time. identity becomes such a huge thing. Like, I firmly believe this. I am left, or I'm right, or I'm this religion, or I'm that religion, or I adamantly hate peanuts, and here's my website about it, or whatever. There's this sense that who we are and how we define ourselves right now is based in just wanting to exist more than anything else, right? Thank you. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe when all this is said and done, and everything has changed, as it will, there'll be this sense that maybe we were all just so afraid of it all. Thank you. That we needed to adhere to these things, right? Like, I am the person who doesn't like ragged stones, and I've got an outfit around it, and I've got a blog about it, but I'm impressed. I mean, I think a lot of times people aren't, like, when people are saying that I even talked to my family about it. Like, I have this one family member who's just like, that offends me, and I'm like, does it though? Like, really offend you? Like, that's a strong word. Like, I don't get offended by much. I get disgusted by things, and I think people are, like, not worth the energy, but I don't find myself like consciously offended that often. But that's hard as well, because being in the position that I'm in, it carries like a certain amount of influence. Like, if you've got people that are watching you on Twitch or listening to your music or whatever, if you have an opinion, a lot of times people are looking for an identity now too. So they will take somebody with whom they identify with and say, okay, well, what does this person do? Okay, well, I'm going to do that now, right? But then what happens if, as life goes, your identity is fluid? It has to be. It has to be. Because if your identity isn't fluid, what that implies to me is that you think you know it all. And you just don't. And I certainly don't. Like, oh my God. Like, I know, again, I said this in the last Twitch hang, but I know less now than when we first started this thing today. So I have to be open to the fact that I'm wrong. I have to be open to the fact that there's another opinion that maybe I haven't considered. I have to be. So perhaps the uniform of today is just these overwhelming senses of, like, trying to control a fundamentally uncontrollable situation. Okay, let's see. Who's one artist you'd love to collaborate with? I get this question a lot, it seems. I don't want to collaborate with anybody. Is that bad? Is that bad? I mean, thank you. Thank you for that donation. It's not to be a dick. I just don't care. Music to me is really, it's about expressing myself. And I find a lot of times collaborations are not based on wanting to make music with people. It's based on wanting to be seen with people. And the friends that I have, I've got a lot of friends that have a certain amount of fame or influence, but I mean, I don't want to take a selfie with them. I don't want to put it up on Instagram. It's like, it seems like these relationships, no matter what level of significance these people have gotten to in their professional life, you're still dealing with people, right? And I find that with me, if there's people that are interested in collaborating with me based on the fact that they want to be involved with me, I mean, I just don't, it doesn't inspire me to work with them in the slightest. The opposite, actually. And I would imagine that anybody that I respect the work of would feel the same way. So, people who I want to collaborate with, nobody. And the people who I am collaborating with, I'm collaborating with them not because I wanted to collaborate with them, but just because they're friends. How do you get your bass tones? For example, the one we're hearing now. That's the same as my guitar tone. I just run it through the exact same thing, right? I just use the EQ on the bass to control the mount and low end. But this one it's the Axe 8. It's just the fractal thing. And I use the FM3 now, which is great. All right. Hi, did you like it in Russia? Yeah, I really liked Russia. I thought Russia was really, really cool. I thought the people were great. I thought, it's like I had a similar experience to a certain extent when I was in China recently, where I think there's so much fear and there's so much clamoring for identity that happens that people always view these places like others, right? Like, China being a communist country, or massive differences between Canadians and people from France, or whatever it is. Like, however we draw these distinctions. But what I find by all these travels that I've been on is that it's just the same people. It's all the same thing. No matter where you go, it's the same thing. I went for a family dinner in Israel recently, and I was at a family dinner in China, and it's just a bunch of people. Everybody's got the same thing. Everybody's got the same things going on. There's like a different bias, and there's a different background, usually based on religion, like where you've got these traditions that are ingrained in society or whatever. But it's the same thing no matter where you go. What are your thoughts on Justin Broderick? I like Justin. We toured together years ago, and I really think he's a good dude, a good person. We did a tour. We shared a bus for 6 weeks, I guess, and Justin is just one of these fantastically talented guys who's just so kind and so sweet, but then when he's on his own, he just looks like so depressed. You're like, hey, Justin, how you doing? He's like, oh, hey, man, I'm doing good. How you doing? Great. All right, I'll see you later. And I hear that, like the Yesu stuff and all that. But no, Justin is a brilliant artist, too. Do you like the Tea Party? You. Kind of. Heilung is special. I agree with that. Dev, how would you compare your Fisherman Fluence pickups to the EMG 81s? A little different. It's similar ballpark, like better for clean for me, more mid-range, which I dig, and I like the fact that they're rechargeable. Yes. Oh, thank you. Skink is sticky. Do you like Beck? I don't like all of Beck, but I really like Morning Phase. Is that the name of that album? I think that's a great album. What do you think the future of meet and greets will be after this pandemic? We'll do a high five from across the room. It'll come back. It'll all come back. It's not like we're never going to do meet and greets again. It's not like we're never going to play live shows again. It's going to be different, but I notice even now it's like things are changing in terms of the whole lockdown thing, and people are becoming a lot more relaxed about it too, which is, it's weird because there's no it's like you just have to use your own mind, I guess, in a lot of these cases, right? And it's a hard thing to have that accountability thrust on us when nobody else is like giving us any information, right? But I think the same thing will probably happen to live shows. I think we'll probably be forced to kind of just make up our own mind about how we choose to proceed with these things, and it's too early for me to say what my mind is on these. Right. Question: if age stemming or reversing treatment was developed, would you take part in it? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, getting older is all right. I wouldn't want to live forever. I mean, there's that too, right? It's like it would remove the value of everything. I think a lot of the value of things comes from the fact that it's temporary. It's like the whole Mandela thing with, you know, those whatever the monks that sort of make those things on the beach with it, putting all the effort into something, knowing full well that the tide's going to take it away. I think there's something about that that I think is essential to art, at least. Like, what would you write about if you were to live forever? You know, there's nothing. Everything would just be like, oh, yeah, there's that, sure, right. Speaking of the Who, have you ever seen Tommy the movie? No. Favorite from Gajira? I think I still like From Mars to Sirius. Okay, what time is it? Oh, I've been on for an hour and 10. Holy cow. All right. Was the Who from Siberia? No, they're from Mongolia. What about the version of Truth when you played drums? Yeah, that was fantastically shit. You just haven't found the right mindset for games. Oh my god, there's that again. Man, the possibility exists. I'm just throwing this out there. It's the same thing I said to a family member of mine that keeps telling me the same thing. The possibility exists that it just doesn't work for me. Can you talk about the inspiration behind Baby Song and Possessions? Yeah, I was terrified because I was going to have a baby. That's what a lot of that period was about. Love, all those songs. Logic is your DAW. Thanks. Logic is one of the DAWs. Logic, Pro Tools, Ableton Live. Those are the three that I use. All right. A couple more questions, and then I'm going to get on to doing podcast stuff again. All right. You'd probably enjoy Animal Crossing. No, I don't want to play video games. I don't want to play video games. I play them now only to appease the people who think that I need it. Like I have friends who are just like, no, you gotta try this one. You gotta try it. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And then I go on and I collect things and I get scores and I blow up demons and things like that. And then I'm like, okay, we done? I want to go right again. How many hours a day working is a tour for you? 24. The only time when I find on tour that I'm not working is when I go to the gym. And I don't go to the gym to, like, get ripped, bro. I go there just because it's, like, almost like a daily reprieve from it all. Like, because 99% of the times when I'm at a gym, there's no musicians there. Would you ever consider doing a podcast with Gene Hoglan? I love Gene. Maybe. But, again, I would much rather have a talk with Gene and not feel the need to record it. Okay, a couple more questions. I'm going to get on to it for today. Let's see. Oh, there's so many questions. I'm sorry I missed so many of them. I'll try and do this once a week if you're still interested in it. What's your worst show that you've ever played? Oh my god, man. I played one in what's that place called in the A5 or something? And it's a boat in Bulgaria? I don't know if it's Bulgaria. Hungary, maybe? I forget. And it was fucking terrible. I remember just being like, oh, I also played one in Warsaw a few years ago that was terrible. And the reason they were both terrible is because I become too self-aware. Like a lot, and it's this weird thing with touring for me is like the work for me is about getting to the root of where I'm at as a person and as an artist, but live you can't do that because if you do that, it's like so hard to do the thing. It's so hard to entertain people. And then what I'll find sometimes they'll like, okay, I'm in my head today. I'm just not going to entertain. I'm just going to play my guitar. I'm just going to focus on playing the music. And then the internal dialogue becomes, you're focusing on playing the music. Now you're thinking about your guitar. 7th fret, 3rd fret. And then you just you lose it entirely. There's this fine line between playing a show and like actually participating with an audience that is much different than one would expect, right? Okay, here we go. Are you a fan of the Deftones? Yeah, some of it actually. Would you like a cup of tea? Yeah, please. Green. Thoughts on Fear Inoculum by Tool. I think that's the first Tool record I really liked. Now that's a divisive comment, and if you really love Tool, please don't please don't use it as an opportunity to get upset. Number one, because I don't care, but number two, I think I missed the boat on Tool up to that point. I saw them live on the Anima Tour. I remember seeing they played in Vancouver at the Town Pump on the where they did that first album, the one with Jerk Off on it, and I thought it was really cool. And when I saw them on the Enema tour, I remember thinking as well, great band. It's just it didn't hit me like it did a lot of other people. And so when the new record came out, at first I heard it and I was like, I don't know. But then I actually found myself listening to it a lot. And I really like it. And I really like the production. I think it sounds great. But Tool's one of these bands that I really like. Really like. But, you know, they didn't, I never had a moment with them. You know, like I went and saw them on Acid and, you know, now it's all about the golden ratio or something. It's just, I think they're a really good band, and that was a really good record. Bigfoot or Godzilla? Oh, Godzilla. Huge lizards? Kidding me? How old is Ziltoid? I think he just turned 48. Okay. Have you ever tried VR games? Yep. I had a buddy that insisted that the reason why I'm not interested in video games is because I haven't tried VR. So I put on a thing and I made virtual restaurant food for somebody and was virtual Batman and I just like, it was just so much work. And again, I'll say this again, just because I don't enjoy something that you enjoy, it's, you know, we can be good and be different. Gym equals brain break. Exactly. That's why I like to exercise. It's a brain break for me. 100%. How is your coffee with Ola? It's the nicest coffee cup I own. He's got good tasting coffee cups. Okay. Children's album, please. I don't know if I could sustain the interest in that. Green tea coming up. Thank you very much. Did you have a good poo this morning? I had 3. What album did you have the most fun recording? Thank you very much. They all start fun and end up being a drag. I'm sure Maynard doesn't like Tool. Oh man, poor guy. Thoughts on Sunbather by Deaf Heaven. I listened to first 3 songs and thought it was interesting. Didn't stick with it. How's your insomnia? Terrible. If you like Tool, you'll like Chevelle. I do like Chevelle. They're cool too. Have you watched The Midnight Gospel? I have not. Ever listened to Somali Yacht Club? No. What was it like working with Misery Signals? I grew up with Jesse. He's a good dude. The controller was a hard one because they were having problems internally. Do you like The Lord of the Rings? Ish. I remember seeing it in the movie theater and being like actually angry at how long it was. I thought, oh, clearly the movie's over now. And then they crested a hill and there was like a bunch more orcs or something. And I just remember turning to the person I was with. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? All right, let's see. What do you charge to do a birthday gig for someone? Sorry, I don't want to do birthday gigs. Do you like synthwave? Oh yeah. Not all of it, but I don't know if it categorizes as such. But that first Tycho record, Dive, man, I've listened to that a lot. Holy cow! What do you think of Piezo Pickups? I like them. I like them. I don't have any, but I do like them. Have you heard of the genre post black metal? I have not. Genres, man. Are you gonna melt, you guys? I used to, but no longer. Which Warwick is that? It's a fretless thumb. So when I fortunately for me and my music nerdy ways, when I left Peavey, I had several guitar companies that were interested in having me play their instruments. And what's very important for me is sticking with things. Like the Peavey thing was very difficult for me because I didn't want to have to leave, but I had to leave for uh, a number of reasons. But so when I started looking at other guitar companies, there were companies that were being very kind. And Framus was the one that offered me the best deal because they're like, listen, we'll make you spaceships with laser beams and whatever you want. And also, it was important for me, like with a lot of the other ones, they're saying, okay, well, we want to make you guitars, but they have to fit into a certain price range. And I just didn't. That wasn't. I don't. It's not like I don't want other people to buy them because I guess you get residuals off of that. But that's not my motivation. It's like I want it for me. I want these guitars to be awesome. So when I went to Framus and we finally um, decided to work together, playing bass is a big passion for me. And they said, okay, well, you can choose a bass. And they had all these really fancy basses, with like the mottled tops and, 7-string thumbs and, spalted maple top, all these things. And I tried them all. But this is the one that I went with. And it was like really understated fretless. It's just like a thumb. Uh, they got green little lights on the side, which is pretty cool. But it's 4-string, and it sounded great, and I just really connected with it. So this is the bass. It's a neck through 4-string thumb, and I play it constantly. Two more questions. Here we go. All right. Do you get to have fun now that you are an adult? Yeah, but fun for me is different than it used to be. When I was younger, fun was a very certain thing. But fun for me now is like everything is quiet. No one's asking me for anything. I can do that, you know. That's fun for me, and I get to do it every now and then in between emails and everything else. The creative process, the writing music part of my job is like 5% of the job. It's most of it is like logistics. It's crazy. And last question, let's see. Sports car driver, fan of vans or SUV? Vehicles are point A to point B for me. I I don't I don't have a whole lot of interest in cars, I guess. And I'm a drag. I am not an exciting person. I but I really do like being creative, and I really like writing, and I really like pursuing, uh, you know, trying to figure out where in my life I'm causing myself problems, and actively using music as a vehicle for me to write about the methodologies that seem to appear in order to try and curb those tendencies. And I have a lot of good moments now, but they come at times where you don't expect. They're like a lot more subtle than they used to be. And again, this is where I'm at with writing now. Is now that the recognition of these things is becoming a lot more clear, a lot more apparent in these quarantined situations. It poses questions about the nature of the work and where it wants to go next. Because a lot of these things have been too loud to hear for the past couple of years are now like, oh, okay, that's where you are. You didn't realize you were there, but that's actually where you are. And I'm waiting for that to define itself and sort of coagulate into an identity that I can make a theme out of. And during that time, I'm cleaning the socks out of my sock drawer, and I'm moving that errant shoe that's in the middle of the garage to a place that doesn't bother me, and keeping my frame of mind as healthy as I can, given the circumstances. And then when I'm finally ready to write, what will happen? And I'm sure that's the same thing going back to that first question about writer's block. When it's ready to happen, it's unequivocal. It's like, oh, now I write. That's it. And until that time, I just kind of make groany noises on a bass and try and keep my shit together. Guys, thank you so much. If you're interested in me continuing these Twitch things for whatever reason, I can do this again next week. Once I start writing again, I'll go back to doing streams of my process on the computer, but I'm not there right now. And podcasts, I'm going to try. I started one. I'm going to try and get this one finished today. I guess the thing is with me, it just is, it always has been, is unless my work is motivated by a compulsion to do it, it just is shitty. So my hope is that when I open up that podcast session and start talking again today, I have a compulsion to do it, or else it's just me rambling, which is of negligible quality in terms of the amount of time it takes. But I'm going to try again, and if it turns out that I have something more to say, I will put it up tonight. And thank you so much, and take care of yourselves, and yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Words, I've run out of them sometimes. That's actually great. That's a good development. See you soon.